Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So please take out your investment Bible, turn to page 459. Today we're going to be covering Charlie Munger's psychological misjudgment number 4, doubt-avoidance tendency. If you don't have the investment Bible, you can get it here. I'll link this page in the description. And cool note here, authorized Chinese translation. So there's a Chinese version of Poor Charlie's Almanack available, and that was translated by none other than Li Lu. Okay, so for any of you who speak Chinese, that might be a fun way to tackle this. So let's get into it. Number 4, doubt avoidance tendency. The brain of man is programmed with a tendency to quickly remove doubt by reaching some decision. It is easy to see how evolution would make animals, over the eons, drift towards such quick elimination of doubt. After all, the one thing that is surely counterproductive for a prey animal that is threatened by a predator is to take a long time in deciding what to do. And so man's doubt avoidance tendency is quite consistent with the history of his ancient non-human ancestors. So pronounced is the tendency in man to quickly remove doubt by reaching some decision that behavior to counter the tendency is required from judges and jurors. Here, delay before decision-making is forced, and one is required to so comport himself prior to conclusion time so that he is wearing a mask of objectivity. And the mask works to help real objectivity along, as we shall see when we next consider man's inconsistency avoidance tendency. That's number 5. We'll cover that next time. Of course, once one has recognized that man has a strong doubt avoidance tendency, it is logical to believe that at least some leaps of religious faith are greatly boosted by this tendency. Even if one is satisfied that his own faith comes from revelation, one must still account for the inconsistent faiths of others. And man's doubt avoidance tendency is almost surely a big part of the answer. What triggers doubt avoidance tendency? Well, an unthreatened man, thinking of nothing in particular, is not being prompted to remove doubt through rushing to some decision. As we shall see later when we get to social proof tendency and stress influence tendency, what usually triggers doubt avoidance tendency is some combination of 1, puzzlement, and 2, stress. And both of these factors naturally occur in facing religious issues. Thus, the natural state of most men is in some form of religion, and this is what we observe. So, reading this last part here, I thought of the stock market, right? This is a video primarily about investing, but also how to think better in life. So here's the important: an unthreatened man thinking of nothing in particular is not being prompted to remove doubt through rushing to some decision. Okay, there is another big advantage of patience in the stock market, right? If you're rushing to some decision, if you're trading, actively trading, buying and selling very quickly, it seems like you'd be more prone to doubt avoidance tendency. So, okay, that's the part from the book. I want to talk through what ChatGPT came up with for doubt avoidance tendency. So I asked it, provide examples of how doubt avoidance tendency can mislead and antidotes for how to prevent it. Doubt avoidance tendency is a cognitive bias that makes us prefer certainty over uncertainty, leading us to make decisions and form beliefs based on incomplete or unreliable information. Here are some examples of how this tendency can mislead and some antidotes to prevent it. Number 1, false beliefs. Doubt avoidance tendency can make us believe in things that are not true. especially when we are presented with false but convincing information. For example, someone might believe in a conspiracy theory because they find it more comforting than accepting the uncertainty of not knowing what actually happened. The antidote. The best way to prevent this is to seek out multiple sources of information, fact check what you read, and remain open to the possibility that you may be wrong. Number 2, overconfidence. Doubt-avoidance tendency can lead to overconfidence, where we believe that we know more than we actually do. This can cause us to make poor decisions or take unnecessary risk. Antidote: encourage critical thinking and encourage people to question their assumptions. Encourage humility and being open to feedback and criticism. Number 3, poor decisions. When we avoid doubt, we might make hasty or poorly informed decisions because we are too focused on finding an answer rather than taking the time to gather and analyze all the available information, right? We kind of take shortcuts. Antidote: encourage deliberation and taking time to gather and analyze information before making a decision. Encourage taking small steps, testing hypotheses, and adjusting course as needed. This reminds me of Ray Dalio trying to find the smartest person in the room who has the other view, or the opposite perspective on a topic as he does. It's just a brilliant approach, but it requires being open to being wrong. Number 4, inaction. Doubt avoidance tendency can also lead to inaction, where we avoid making a decision altogether because we are afraid of the uncertainty that comes along with it. The antidote: encourage taking action even in the face of uncertainty. Break down larger problems into smaller, more manageable steps. Emphasize the value of experimentation and learning from failure. In the next tab here, we're going to talk about being open to failure. In fact, being eager to be wrong, right? Eagerness to fail. By recognizing and addressing doubt avoidance tendency, we can make better decisions and form more accurate beliefs. Encouraging open-mindedness, critical thinking, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty can help us avoid being misled by this cognitive bias. Thank you, ChatGPT. Okay, the last section I want to look at is from none other than Farnham Street. And this blog post is eager to be wrong. When is the last time you said to yourself, I hope I'm wrong, and really meant it? Right? Have you ever really meant that? Here's the thing. In our search for truth, we must realize, thinking along 2 tracks, that we're frequently led to wrong solutions by the workings of our natural apparatus. Uncertainty is very mentally demanding, and in a certain way, physically demanding process. The brain uses a lot of energy when it has to process conflicting information. To show yourself, try reading up on something contentious like the abortion debate, but with a completely open mind to either side, if you can. Pay attention as your brain starts twisting itself into a very uncomfortable state while you explore completely opposing sides of an argument. This mental pain is called cognitive dissonance, and it's really not that much fun. Charlie Munger calls the process of resolving this dissonance doubt-avoidance tendency, the tendency to resolve conflicting information as quickly as possible, to return to physical and mental comfort, to get back to your happy zone. Combine this tendency to resolve doubt with the well-known first conclusion bias, and the logical conclusion is that we land on a lot of wrong answers and stay there because it's easier. Now that's a troubling thought. Let that sink in. We don't stay there because we're correct, but because it's physically easier. It's a form of laziness. There's a way to attack this problem. Munger has a dictum that he won't allow himself to hold an opinion unless he knows the other side of the argument better than that side does. Such an unforgiving approach means he's not often wrong. It sometimes takes many years to show, but posterity has rarely shown him to be way off. It's a tough, wise, and correct solution. Tough. So most people don't use this approach, but it's wise and correct. It's still hard, though, and doesn't solve the energy expenditure problem. What can we tell ourselves to encourage ourselves to do that kind of work? The answer would be well known to Darwin: train yourself to be eager to be wrong. Okay, we're on the home stretch here. The advice isn't simply being open to being wrong. It's usually just lip service, right? It's nice and correct in theory, but frequently turns into empty words on a page. Simply being open to being wrong allows you to keep the window cracked when confronted with disconfirming evidence, to say, well, I was open to it, and keep on with your old conclusion. Eagerness implies something more. Eager implies that you actively hope there is real, true, disconfirming information proving you wrong. It implies you'd be more than glad to find it. It implies you might even go looking for it. And most importantly, it implies that when you do find yourself in error, you don't need to feel bad about it. You feel great about it. Imagine how much of the world this unlocks for you. So, there's a few things I wanted to say here. Oh, I forgot the first one. The second one. So Munger was asked this. Many of you probably saw it in the Daily Journal annual meeting just a couple of weeks ago. He was asked, if you're so anti-Bitcoin or anti-cryptocurrency, can you provide the other side of the argument? Right? That's what he's advising here. And he really kind of ducked that. He, just went on saying, it's crypto, SHIT, which was amusing. But he really wasn't living up to this antidote, right, for doubt avoidance tendency. So that was interesting to observe. What was the last thing I was gonna say? I was open to it. Oh, so Charlie Munger, this is another thing Charlie Munger says. He likes to blow up one of his most closely held beliefs each year. And he said something like, each year I don't destroy one of my closely held beliefs is a year wasted. So it's a really powerful thing to actively seek out where you might be wrong, and feel like it's a success, right? When you actually achieve that, when you destroy one of your closely held beliefs, the success is you have a more correct belief system, right? You've replaced something that was wrong. And that in and of itself is the value of the exercise, because that will serve you over time and time again in the rest of your life. So this is a very powerful one, doubt-avoidance tendency. And again, I will link to this place where you can buy Poor Charlie's Almanack or the Chinese translation version. I don't get any money from this, guys. I just love this book. Obviously, I'm spending 25 videos covering just one chapter in here. And net proceeds go to benefit the Munger Research Center of the Huntington Library. I'm not sure, what their mission is, but it's, Charlie Munger's foundation. So you gotta, I respect that, even not knowing anything about it. So anyway, guys, I will leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.